The king made a strange decree. His only son, the prince, must marry 3 wives, but not just any women. They must all have the biggest behinds in the land. Girls rushed to compete, and one desperate maiden risked everything, even her life. She went for BBL just to catch the prince's eye. But what happened next will leave you speechless. Welcome to Folktales by Chisom, where every tale beats with suspense, culture, and wisdom. Today's story will leave you shocked, because when beauty, power, and rivalry collide, the lesson that follows will touch every heart. Stay with me to the very end.
The midday sun poured fire over the land of Umudike, turning the palace square into a sea of light and dust. The talking drums had been beating since dawn, echoing across farms, streams, and compounds. Men abandoned their hoes on the ridges, women dropped their calabashes by the stream, and children ran barefoot, their laughter mixing with the heavy thump of the drums. By the time the last gong struck, the square was overflowing. Traders, still clutching cowries, pressed shoulder to shoulder with hunters carrying bows. Elderly women leaned on sticks, fanning themselves as they muttered. Even strangers from nearby villages had gathered, curious about what decree the king would announce this time. Then, silence fell. The palace doors opened, and out stepped King Uzoma, tall, broad-chested, draped in leopard skin and beads that glistened in the sun. His staff of authority struck the earth once, twice, and the air seemed to bow. Behind him walked Prince Obinna, the only heir to the throne. His face was calm, but his eyes, dark and restless, betrayed unease. "My people of Umudike," King Uzoma's voice boomed, rolling over the crowd like thunder. "The time has come for my son to take wives and prepare for the crown." The villagers clapped and cheered, women ululated, and the praise singers burst into chants of "Obinna, lion of the land, son of Uzoma." But the king raised his staff again, and the noise died down. His next words sent a shockwave through the square. "He shall not marry just 1 wife. He must marry 3, and not just any women, only those with the grandest hips, the widest curves, the most magnificent behinds, for such women are fit to bear the weight of a kingdom." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Men shook their heads in disbelief, while maidens clutched their wrappers and exchanged quick glances. Some giggled nervously, others puffed their chests and swung their hips with sudden pride. An elder whispered, "This decree will scatter families." Another muttered, "What is the king turning our daughters into?" At the edge of the square, a group of young girls whispered excitedly, "Ngozi would surely win. See how her waist moves like water." Another countered, "Don't forget Chidinma. Her kindness shines brighter than body." Then, with a mocking laugh, one added, "But Amara, that slim broomstick, let her stay at home." The laughter stung Amara like fire. She stood quietly at the back, her wrapper tied neatly, her face lowered, but her eyes, sharp and burning, hid a storm. At the front, Ngozi, naturally curvy, strutted boldly, soaking in the admiring stares. She winked at the men, her smile daring. Beside her, Chidinma, modest and graceful, kept her gaze lowered, hands clasped before her. Her presence was calm, like the stream on a quiet morning. But Amara stood apart, slim, often overlooked, the one children teased and women pitied. As the crowd roared, Amara's thoughts screamed louder. "They think I am nothing. They think I cannot be chosen. I will show them. I will show them all." That night, while the village feasted and gossiped about the decree, Amara sat in the dim glow of her mother's hut. Her mother's voice cracked with worry. "My child, forget this madness. You cannot fight with them. Let the prince marry who he will. You will find your own husband in time." But Amara's hands trembled as she tied her small bundle of belongings. Her eyes glistened with tears, yet her jaw was set in iron. "No, Mama, I am tired of being mocked. I will not sit and watch life pass me by. If the prince must see me, I must become the kind of woman he cannot ignore." Before dawn, while the village still slept under the cool breath of night, Amara slipped quietly out of Umudike. Her wrapper clutched around her, her heart pounding. She began the long walk to the city, chasing a dangerous secret that would change her life forever. The moon was still hanging like a calabash in the gray sky when Amara slipped out of Umudike. She left a note beneath her mother's mat, 3 lines of ink blotted by tears. "Forgive me. I must try. Pray for me." The dawn wind pulled at her wrapper as she hurried toward the road where the night bus would pass, heart thumping as though it wanted to run ahead of her. The bus arrived with a squeal of tired brakes and a cough of smoke. Hawkers swarmed it like bees on ripe mango. "Gala! Pure water! Groundnut!" Voices blending with the conductor's rusty bell and the preacher's thunderous prayer for safe journey. Amara climbed aboard, clutching a small bag and a bigger fear. The wooden seat vibrated beneath her as the bus juddered onto the main road, and Umudike slipped behind like a dream she wasn't sure she'd ever return to. Fields turned to factories. Palm trees gave way to concrete. The city rose before her, loud, layered, alive. Billboards of smiling women with perfect bodies stared down like judges. At the motor park, a wall of sound hit her. Horns, bargaining, insults, laughter, music, a boy beating a jerrycan like a drum. Her head swam. "Amara! Amara of Nettie's compound?" a voice called. She turned. Chibuzo, the trader who used to bring cloth and hair extensions to the village, leaned on a sack of goods. His eyes flicked over her, curious, calculating. "What are you doing here alone?" Amara swallowed. Words trembled at the gate of her lips. She reminded herself why she came. I need money. A loan. I will return it, I swear." Chibuzo's brow lifted. "How much?" She told him. The figure fell like a stone between them. He whistled, then chuckled. "For what? Business?" Her throat closed. "Say it," she urged herself. For surgery." He blinked, then smiled, the kind that didn't reach the eyes. "Eh? To change body? Ah, Amara." He looked at her like a man who'd found a rare shell on the shore. "You will pay double. If you fail, you will marry me. Do you agree?" Her stomach turned. "Marry you? No, please. I will pay. I will pay it all. Give me 1 moon after the trials." He tapped his finger on the sack, thinking, tasting power on his tongue. 1 moon, he echoed, at last. "Interest is high. Remember what you said." He handed her the money in thick, folded bundles that seemed to burn her palms. She signed his dog-eared notebook with a shaking hand and a name that suddenly felt small. Outside, the city pressed in. She found a cheap room near a noisy junction where the night never ended, only changed color. She lay on the thin mattress and stared at the ceiling fan as it limped around like a tired bird. Is this the path to a crown or a grave? The thought drifted across her mind, leaving a cold trail. The next day, she followed whispers to a clinic tucked behind high painted walls and a black gate. The gate hissed open. Inside, polished floors, the breath of antiseptic. A framed photo of a smiling woman who seemed too perfect to be human. A receptionist with a straight face asked for her name. A nurse with tired kindness measured her pulse. In a small office, the doctor's coat was whiter than anything Amara had ever seen. Dr. Hassan, trim, composed, eyes that carried both arithmetic and warning, looked at her chart. "This is elective, not for sickness. Do you understand the risks?" She nodded, though the paper he slid toward her was full of words heavier than cowries: bleeding, infection, blood clots, fat embolism, death. The letters crawled over each other until they blurred. "Sign, if you agree." The pen felt heavy. When the tip met the page, her signature looked like a path into forest. They booked her for the next day. Night folded around her like a damp cloth. She whispered her mother's name, her village's name, God's name. A voice inside her argued, "Go home, keep your soul." Another voice, sharper, answered, "People are already writing your story without you. Take the pen." In the morning, the theater smelled of metal and something too clean to be kind. A nurse, Ada, spoke gently as she fixed lines and checked screens. "Breathe. If you are afraid, say it. Fear does not make you small." Amara's hands were ice. "I am afraid, but I will still do it." "Courage," Ada murmured, "is fear that decided to face front." Cold spread up her arm, a traveling night. Lights drifted above her like slow stars. Voices faded. The world slipped. Days bled into nights. Fever visited, hot and bossy. Sweat soaked the pillow. An ache deep as wells pulsed under her skin. She dreamed of her mother's courtyard and woke to the hiss of oxygen. She begged for water and sipped from a spoon. She cried, then laughed, then cried again, because neither changed anything. Ada massaged her legs and told her stories about patients who gave up at the edge of their mountain. "You are not the first to climb, and you will not be the last, but you must keep your hands on the stones," Shida said. Sometimes Dr. Hassan came, touched the bandage with careful fingers, and said, "Good, no sign of trouble, be patient." Other times, the clinic corridor erupted with the quick footsteps of fear, panic, a wheel of a trolley, the bloom of emergency. When silence returned, it sat heavier than before. On the 7th morning, they let her stand fully. The room swayed. Ada steadied her. Amara stared into the mirror. A stranger stared back. Hips with a river's curve, a silhouette drawn with a fuller brush. Her breath caught. She touched her sides and flinched at the tenderness, then laughed through tears, a sound both broken and whole. "Is it me?" she asked the mirror. "Am I still here?" "You are," Ada said softly, "but bodies can change faster than hearts. Be gentle with both." In the days that followed, she learned to walk with this new weight. The garment whispered against her skin. The scars beneath hummed like bees, busy, unseen. She counted coins, wrapped the loan money's remainder in cloth, and held it like a secret that ate sleep. When she could carry herself without the world slanting, she returned to Dr. Hassan for final checks. "Your body will need time," he said, writing notes that looked like hills. "Do not run with it. Let it learn you." Amara nodded, heart drumming a future's rhythm. "I will return. I will stand on the palace square, and the world will look twice." At the motor park, the bus conductor's voice cut the air again. "Last! Enter with your change." Amara climbed slowly, feeling the eyes that followed her like hands. Men stared too long. Women measured her with quick glances that judged and praised and wondered in the same breath. She hugged the window and watched the city loosen its grip, brick by brick, billboard by billboard. The road unspooled like a long proverb. Villages flicked past, red earth, laughing children, goats that chose the road over grass for reasons known only to goats. She pressed a palm to her ribs where something ached like weather, and prayed the ache meant healing, not harm. When the bus rolled into Umudike, the sun was bowing to evening. She stepped down and the market caught sight of her. Silence. Then an eruption. Mortars paused mid-pound. Peppers stopped mid-flight from basket to scale. A woman forgot a price mid-haggle and simply stared. Someone dropped a calabash. It rolled, wobbling, as if it too couldn't believe its eyes. "Amara? Amara?" a voice squeaked. Another voice, then a chorus. "Amara!" Men's mouths fell open. Boys elbowed each other and grinned like they'd discovered mischief's mother. A group of young women drew closer, eyes bright with curiosity and something sharper. Through the swell of bodies came Ngozi, chin high, lips painted with confidence. Her eyes slid over her like glass. "Welcome back, city girls," she said, sweet as unripe fruit. "Miracles do happen." A ripple of laughter moved like a lizard's tail. Amara felt heat rise from her neck to her ears. Words lined up behind her teeth and refused to come out. Then a hand touched her arm. Chidinma, head wrapped in soft cloth, eyes warm as evening water, smiled. "You look well," she said, letting the words do what hands sometimes cannot, heal. Amara swallowed and managed a nod. "Thank you." Behind them, whispers braided themselves into a rope strong enough to pull the world off balance. Is it medicine? Is it water they pour in? Is it not dangerous? I heard it can kill. I heard it can make you a queen. I heard it's better than being invisible. And there, leaning against a pillar of the market stall, was Chibuzo. He held a toothpick between his teeth like a small flag. His eyes brushed over her and returned, resting, weighing. "One moon," he mouthed. Not loud, not soft, just enough to wedge itself under her ribs like a stone. Amara's gaze flicked away. The hidden scars under her garment hummed, tender and secret. She squared her shoulders and walked on, each step a negotiation between pain and pride. Children followed in a train, giggling, mimicking a grown-up sash they had seen on television queens. A few older women shook their heads in equal parts warning and wonder. By the time she reached the compound, her mother stood at the doorway, note in hand, eyes filled with questions and relief and fear all at once. They held each other without words. Later, in the privacy of their clay-walled room, her mother whispered, "You came back alive. For that I dance. But daughter, you have brought the city's fire home. Be careful not to burn." Amara nodded against her mother's shoulder. She didn't say that some fires were the only way to see in certain nights. 2 days later, the palace sent messengers to announce the king's trials would begin after 3 sunsets. The square would host 3 challenges: grace, strength, and dance, to prove beauty could carry water, mortar, and rhythm. The village buzzed like a hive. Tailors worked late, drummers tuned leather. Gossip ripened and fell from mouths. Amara lay awake that night, listening to the chorus of crickets and distant singing. Her body spoke in a new language of ache and promise. She placed her palm on her side and felt the whispering hum of healing. The night held its breath with her. When dawn crept in, she arose. Her wrapper whispered around her new hips. In the courtyard, water in the clay pot reflected a sky learning to become day. Amara cupped the water and washed her face as if clearing not just dust, but doubt. A cock crowed. Somewhere a drum answered. 3 sunsets, she murmured. Let them come. And the scars beneath her garment throbbed softly, like secrets tapping to be remembered.
The palace square of Umudike had never seen such a crowd. From dawn, the air had been alive with footsteps, voices, and the throb of drums being tested. The king's decree had spread far beyond the village. Visitors came from neighboring towns, eager to witness the trials that would decide who would stand as wives to the prince. By mid-morning, the square was decorated like a festival ground. Palm fronds lined the edges, banners of red and gold fluttered. Benches were arranged for elders, mats spread for women, while children clung to every available corner, their eyes wide with excitement. Smoke from roasted maize and suya curled into the air, mixing with the scent of dust and sweat. The king's gong sounded. Gaboom! Silence rolled over the crowd like a sudden wind. King Zoma appeared, tall and fierce, his leopard-skinned cloak swaying with each step. At his side was Queen Nena, calm yet sharp-eyed, her coral beads clinking softly. Behind them walked Prince Obinna, broad-shouldered, his expression unreadable, though his eyes flickered often, as though searching for something unseen. The town crier announced in a booming voice, "Today begins the trials of beauty and grace. 3 tests to prove who shall enter the palace as wives to Prince Obinna." The villagers cheered, stamping their feet and blowing horns, beating drums. From the waiting line of maidens, 3 names shone like fireflies. Ngozi stood tall, her wrapper clinging to her curves, her skin oiled to glisten under the sun. She smirked, already drunk on the whispers of men calling her name. Chidinma stood modestly, her head covered with a scarf, eyes lowered, her calm presence lay shade under a mango tree. Amara, newly returned from the city, tied her wrapper carefully around her transformed body. Her scars ached under the garment, but she kept her chin high. The stares, the murmurs, the mocking, she bore them with quiet fire. The first trial, Grace and Elegance. One by one, the maidens were called to walk across the great square while the people judged their poise. The drum softened into a steady rhythm guiding each step. Ngozi went first, her hips hold with practiced precision, her shoulders swayed like palm trees in a storm. The men shouted praises, women clapped. She winked at the crowd, basking in the adoration. "Aha, see him," someone shouted. "She walks like a queen already." Another agreed. Ngozi reached the end of the square and turned with a flourish, her chin raised proudly. She had fed the crowd, and they were full of her. Next came Chidinma. She walked without exaggeration, her step steady, her gaze straight. There was no arrogance, no pretense, only calm. The elders nodded in approval. "She walks like river water." When elders said softly, "Yes," another replied, quiet but sure. Though the cheers were softer than Ngozi's, they carried a different weight, the weight of respect. Finally, Amara was called. The drums shifted, a slower, heavier rhythm. She took her first step, then another. Her body moved differently now, fuller, rounder, commanding attention. The crowd went silent, eyes glued to her. "Is this Amara?" someone whispered. "The slim girl. How? Did the city heat her with matcha?" Amara's steps were slow and deliberate. She felt every gaze prick her skin, every whisper tug at her scars. Yet she walked, chin lifting, hips swaying with rhythm. When she reached the center of the square, her eyes locked with the prince's. For a heartbeat too long, his gaze lingered on her. The queen noticed, her lips pressed together in thought. Amara reached the end of the square and paused and turned. The silence broke into murmurs, half awe, half suspicion. Ngozi smiled thin, her eyes narrowing. She whispered to the girl beside her, "She hides something. I will find it." The gong struck again. Gaboom! The crier announced, "The trial of grace is complete. Tomorrow, the trial of strength." The crowd erupted into chatter as they dispersed. Some praised Ngozi's boldness. Others respected Chidinma's calm, but most could not stop talking about Amara. "She walks like one born again." No, she walked like one who hides pain. As the sun sank, Amara returned home, her body aching, her mind restless. She lay awake that night, replaying the prince's gaze, the whispers, and Ngozi's piercing stare. Her scar throbbed beneath her wrapper, reminding her that beauty carried its own burden. The second trial dawned with a sky of the color of unpolished brass. A thin hermetic breeze ran through the palms, carrying with it drum beats and the smell of wood smoke.
By the time the sun lifted, the palace square had already transformed into a workshop of strength. Mortars big as stools, pestles that glinted with oil, and neat pyramids of boiled yams steaming in baskets. Calabashes stood in a proud line filled to the brim with water drawn from the royal well. Vendors hawked early food, akata sizzling in pans, roasted plantain sweating under char. Children chased each other until a single stroke on the king's gong pinned them to stillness. The arena took a breath. The day began to beat. The town crier's voice rolled like a drum. "Here in Umudike, today the maidens will prove that beauty is not wind. They will pound yam till it sings, and carry water without spilling the truth of their steps." King Uzama settled into his carved seat under the still cotton tree, staff across his knees. Queen Nena sat beside him, coral beads catching morning light. Prince Obinna stood just behind, palms clasped at his back, expression calm as a gourd. Yet from time to time, his eyes searched the line of maidens as if trying to read a page the wind kept turning. Ngozi rolled her shoulders and quicked the thick pestle like a conqueror testing a spear. Chidinma dusted her palms, smiled at the mortar as if greeting an old friend. Amara stretched her fingers, feeling the snug whisper of the compressing garment under her wrapper, feeling also the tenderness underneath. Those hidden lines where a city's decision still hummed. Begin came the order. The square filled with wood-on-wood thunder. Ngozi's pestle rose and fell with the rhythm of war drums. Boom, boom, boom. Each strike deep and quick. She threw a grin at the crowd as if to say, "Watch how queens are made." The young men whooped and some women rolled their eyes and muttered, "Overconfidence wears no wrapper." Chidinma found a different song. Her pestle moved steady, no flash, only trust. She hummed under her breath, and the yam obeyed, softening, smoothing, turning to the kind of powdered cloud that children spill with fingers when mothers look away. Elders nodded, their eyes soft approval. I might have started strong, lift, drop, lift, dry, breath counting the bits, but strength had two faces, muscle and memory. By the twice strike, her sides trembled. From the shade, a voice hit, "See her pausing, the city has made her weak." Another voice answered, "Pain makes truth walk differently."
Amara set her jaw and drove the pestle down. The mortar answered with a dull, approving thud. Sweat slid down her temple, soaked the edge of her head tie, ran a careful path along her back. She shifted her stance the way Ada, the clinic nurse, had taught her, weight split, knees soft. The pestle rose and fell again, less grace now, more grit. Prince Obinna watched, something almost like a frown drawing between his brows. Queen Nena leaned in, her voice a murmur meant for one listener alone. A man who will rule must learn to see the weight people carry that eyes cannot measure. The pounding ended on a whistle. Inspectors moved like bees, dipping wooden spoons, judging texture. "Smooth," they said at Chidinma's mortar. "Fine, but airy," one said at Ngozi's. Earning a sharp look, she hid with a smile. At Amara's, the inspector paused, tasted again, then gave a short nod that felt like rain on dry ground. "First trial of strength complete," the crier announced. "Now, balance, Calabasha march." Servants lifted the waiting gourds onto each maiden's head, round-bellied, filled near the lip. The path had been marked, a loop around the square over 3 small ridges of swept earth and through a narrow channel of stakes capped with cowries. Spill too much and you start again, tip and you sit. Ngozi stepped into the path with hips already smiling. The water barely acknowledged the movement. She walked like a song that knows its chorus. The crowd cheered loudly, some already tasting her victory. Chidinma took her first step, shoulders relaxed, attention tucked behind her eyes. Each foot fell as if she were greeting the ground by name. A lull of calm followed her, and even the most excited child slowed to watch. Amara inhaled. She felt the cool circle of the calabash lip against her coil of head tie, the new weights settling like a quiet argument with the old. The first steps were easy. She had balanced water and firewood since she was small. but halfway through the loop a stitch lit under her ribs like a match. She pressed her tongue to the roof of her mouth the way Ada had taught. Past the first ridge, fine. Past the second, fine. At the third ridge, a cluster of boys with dust-bright legs and mischief-bright eyes edged too close to the path. "Hold," Chidinma whispered, the word warm and round. Amara froze, then released breath in a thin thread. The water found its center again, the rim's tremble eased. The boy who had stretched the toe found his stomach unable to meet his spine. He ducked behind friends. "Move on," a guard marked, but the bite in his voice had dulled. From beyond the cordon, a slow clap sounded, one man, then two, then a patch of the crowd. The kind of applause that praises a thing that had 100 ways to break and chose none.
They emerged into open square, the three of them almost abreast. Ngozi 6 strides ahead, Chidinma a breath behind her, Amara 2 longer breaths behind Chidinma. The crowd's noise braided itself again into one loud rope as the crier lifted his staff. Enough. The trial ends. Calabashes were lifted down, weighed with spoons, measured by eyes. Spills were counted from the dirt's dark kisses. Ngozi's gourd had barely sighed. Applause leaped toward her. She took it with a curtsy spun into boast. Chidinma's was near perfect too, a handful of drops clinging to the rim like dew to leaf. Elders smiled with the satisfaction of old recipes done right. Amara's calabash held more loss, a thin line down one side where the near fall had whispered itself into liquid, but it was not the mess her enemies wanted. A murmur of "well done" wove its way toward her in threads from unexpected mouths. Chibuzo's voice cut across the tapestry like a rough stitch. "One moon," he sang in a merchant's melody, not loud enough to be accusation, not soft enough to be forgotten. His eyes gleamed like a trader's smelling rain on cola trees. Prince Obinna exhaled slowly, almost a sigh, as if the trials had laid a thumb on his chest. He felt the tug of the decree on one side, 3 wives, 3 bodies, 3 public proofs, and something subtler tugging at him from another direction, a whisper shaped like what the queen kept saying. Character is the cloth that doesn't tear when rain falls. "Their scores?" King Uzoma asked an attendant, boredom and calculation sharing his voice. "Close, my king," came the reply. "Very close." "Good," the king said. "Let the village argue. Tomorrow we dance, and the gods will choose what men pretend to judge." The crier lifted his staff again. "People of Umudike, the trial of strength is complete. Rest your throats and oil your ankles. Tomorrow is the dance, where feet speak the secret names of hearts." The crowd broke like a wave against the edges of the square. Laughter, argument, mimicry, the everyday theater of a village that had been fed a spectacle and now wanted to chew it in every compound. Children reenacted Amara's near fall with dramatic gasps until mothers hissed them into errands. Old men debated whether humility could cook soup. Young women walked with new care, calabashes invisible but balanced all the same. Amara lingered by the shade of a Nudarla tree until the press thinned. When she finally turned to leave, the sun had moved enough to throw a long, thin shadow before her that looked like a girl she used to be. Her body ached in the careful places, but inside that ache a new steadiness had set like custard. "You did not break," she told herself. "You bent and did not break." Behind her, hidden among the palm fronds, Ngozi watched with arms folded. A vow sharpened itself in her mouth. "Tomorrow," she whispered to the hot air, "no one will remember who helped who. They will only remember who burned the ground." And in another corner, Chibuzo counted cowries and smiled without humor. "1 moon," he repeated to the leather of his pouch. "1 moon is not long." Evening slid down the sky like a curtain. The square emptied. The silk cotton tree kept its counsel. The palace torches were lit one by one, beads of fire on a necklace of night. Somewhere, a singer warmed a voice and sent it into the dark.
The third trial arrived with the sunrise, cloaked in fire.
That morning, the palace square felt different, not like a contest ground, but like a stage waiting for something unforgettable. Today was the dance of the maidens, the final test. It was said that the way a woman danced revealed her true spirit, for rhythm uncovered what pride and silence often hid. The king sat upright on his carved stool, beads rattling softly on his chest. Beside him, Queen Nanana's eyes glimmered like a hawk watching prey and sky at once. Prince Obinna stood behind them, a statue of calm, though a storm brewed in his chest. The town crier raised his staff and bellowed, "Today the ground itself shall judge. The feet that speak truest shall be heard by the gods. Maidens, dance!" The drums roared to life. Ngozi's dance. Ngozi strode forward first. Her wrapper was tied high, her waist adorned with rattling beads. As the drums rose, she bent low and snapped her hips, each movement sharp as lightning. The crowd erupted, men clapping, women gasping. She twirled, rolled her waist, stamped her feet in perfect rhythm. Her body spoke confidence, arrogance, victory already claimed. "She dances like thunder," someone shouted. "Yes, thunder that wants the sky all to itself," an elder muttered. Ngozi ended with a dramatic spin, arms outstretched, lips curled in triumph. The cheers were deafening. She bowed, drinking in the adoration like palm wine. Chidinma's dance. Then came Chidinma. The drums softened, the flutes rose like wind through leaves. Chidinma moved gently, gracefully, her steps flowing like a calm river. Her hands painted the air, her hips swayed with dignity, her eyes closed in serenity. She danced not for the crowd, but as though she were praying. "She moves like water," an old woman whispered. "Soft but strong," another agreed. The crowd grew silent, hushed, almost reverent. When she ended with a simple bow, the applause was not loud, but deep, the kind that lingers in the bones. Amara's dance. Finally, Amara stepped forward. Her heart pounded, not just with the rhythm of the drums, but with the hidden ache of her scars. The garments hugged her body, her beads jingled nervously. The crowd leaned in, hungry for spectacle, suspicion, scandal. The drummers changed tempo, fast, fiery, relentless. Amara closed her eyes, inhaled, then began. Her hips rolled, her feet stamped, her waist twisted with a force that made the crowd gasp. Whispers spread like dry grass on fire. "Is this Amara? From where did she borrow such rhythm? She dances like the gods have touched her." The prince's eyes locked on Amara. For a moment, he forgot the decree, forgot the throne. He saw only a woman, dancing as if life itself depended on it. But then, pain struck. A sudden sharp stab tore through Amara's side. She faltered, her step collapsing. The crowd gasped. She clutched her waist, beads rattling wildly. Her knees buckled, sweat drenched her brow. She tried to move again, but her body screamed. And then, like a spear thrown into silence, Ngozi's voice rang out. "Fake! Tell them what you did in the city!" The square froze, drums halted mid-beat, every eye turned to Amara. "Tell them!" Ngozi shouted again, her face twisted in triumph. "Tell them about the knife, the money, the lies. You are not real, you are carved." A murmur surged through the crowd. "Carved? What does she mean? She is saying Amara. Could it be true?" Amara stood trembling, her breath ragged, shame crawling up her throat. She could lie, she could collapse, she could run. But something deep inside her, older than fear,
older than scars, rose. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking, but loud enough to carry. "Yes, I went to the city. Yes, I did BBL. I was mocked all my life, laughed at, called broomstick. I wanted to be seen, to have a chance. I risked my life. I almost died. It was foolish, but I am not fake. I bleed, I breathe, I have a heart that still beats true." Her words struck the square like a second drumbeat. The crowd erupted, not in cheers, but in divided voices. She admits it. Shame! Yet she is brave to say it. Better a true heart than a false body. Then, as if to pour oil on fire, a new voice pierced the noise. "She owes me money." It was Chibuzo stepping forward from the crowd, his grin sly, his eyes hungry. He pointed at Amara. "She borrowed from me to pay for her foolishness. If she cannot return it, she must return to me as wife." The square exploded in chaos. Some laughed, some shouted, some jeered. Women shook their heads, elders muttered. On the throne, King Ujima slammed his staff. Boom! Silence fell like a dropped curtain. But the silence was heavy, loaded with judgment, shame, fear. Queen Nanana rose, her voice calm but cutting through the air. "This trial has revealed more than dance. It has revealed truth. Beauty dazzles, but character unmasks." Her eyes swept the crowd, then settled on Amara. "The people have seen, the gods have heard. Now the prince must decide." All eyes turned to Obinna, who until then had been silent. His chest rose and fell with the weight of the choice. He looked at Ngozi, radiant but proud, at Chidinma, gentle and kind, and at Amara, trembling yet courageous. And for the first time, the prince stepped forward, his voice clear, carrying the judgment that would shape the kingdom.
Prince Obinna. For 3 trials he had stood silent, his face a mask carved from patience. But now the mask cracked. He stepped forward from the throne's shadow, and even the air shifted as though the earth itself leaned to listen. "People of Umudike," his voice rang clear, young yet carrying the weight of 1,000 ancestors. "You have seen their bodies, you have heard their truths. Today I will choose not only with my eyes, but with my heart." Obinna lifted his chin. "By my father's decree, I must take 3 wives, and by my heart's decree, I will take Ngozi, Chidinma, and Amara. But know this, the throne is not built on behinds or beads. It is built on truth, kindness, and courage. Let these 3 carry them into my palace." The square erupted. Some cheered, some muttered, some argued, but above the noise the king struck his staff with satisfaction. "Boom! So it is decreed," he thundered. Queen Nanana's lips curved into the faintest smile, her eyes glistening with pride. She had always known her son's heart would pierce through vanity. As for Chibuzo, his mouth opened to protest, but the king's guard stepped forward like shadows with spears. The king's voice cut him down. "The treasury shall repay your loan, but you, Chibuzo, will never again set foot in my palace. Go, before I decide your punishment should be heavier than shame." Chibuzo spat on the ground, but fear pulled him back into the crowd. 3 wounds later, Umudike bloomed with celebration. Drums echoed for days, fires burned through nights, the smell of jollof rice and pepper soup drifted over the hills. Traders came from distant towns, griots composed new songs, and masquerades danced through the square. Ngozi's wedding came first. Golden cloth, bold jewelry, a feast loud with laughter. She preened like a peacock, reveling in her day of glory. Chidinma's followed, humble, serene, with children dancing barefoot in circles, her joy quiet but deep. Then came Amara's, different from the rest. Her wedding was filled with tears, cheers, and something heavier, redemption. She stood before the women of Umudike, her wrapper gleaming, her new body on full display. But it was not her body that held them, it was her voice. "My sisters," she began, trembling but strong, "I went to the city because I was tired of insult. I thought if I changed my body, I could change my destiny. But I have learned insults have many mouths. You cannot silence them with knives. You silence them with your work, your kindness, your dignity. Do not cut yourselves for crowns. Carry yourselves with pride, and the right eyes will see you." The women raised their hands and cried out as one, "Isse, so it be done." Amara wept, but her tears were not of shame. They were of release. For the first time, she felt seen not for the curve of her hips, but for the courage of her heart. Life in the palace was not without quarrels. Ngozi often clashed with her pride. Chidinma often soothed with her peace, and Amara learned each day to forgive her scars. Prince Obinna treated them with balance, never favoring loudly, but always watching with the eyes of a man who had chosen carefully. And when griots told the tale in the marketplaces, they did not say, "These were the women with the biggish behinds." They said, "These were the women who showed that truth, kindness, and courage are the true pillars of beauty." Moral: beauty fades, wealth fades, but character remains. Amara's secret nearly destroyed her, but her courage saved her. Ngozi's pride nearly blinded her, but wisdom tamed her. Chidinma's kindness held them all together. And Prince Obinna chose not with his eyes alone, but with his heart, and in doing so, built a stronger future for his people. The kingdom of Umudike learned a lesson for all generations. The body may win applause, but only the heart wins the crown.